Theodore E. Johnk is buried. I have my mother with me, and we're going to do a little family history. We're going to start here at Oakland. We're probably starting backwards, but we're going to start at the Oakland Cemetery, and then we're going to go to the Lincoln Township Cemetery, where Theodore E. Jonk's father, Fred, is buried, and his father. And then we're going to end up in Walnut, where Sankey, Grandpa Sankey, is buried. The time is about 4 o'clock. It's a little bit windy. Skies are clear. Born September 23rd of 1905, and he died October 1986. I guess I should tell who I am. My name is Ted. They had 3 sons, Don, the oldest, then Carol, and then of course myself. And this is where my Aunt Lena died. This was Dad's sister. And she was born January 22nd, 1903. And she died March 1st of 1958. Now this would be Lena Williams, which was my dad's sister. There was Earl and Roy and Raymond and Pearl. And of course this is my mother, Gladys Johnk. Hi there, young lady.
Oh, Teddy, get away.
Well, tell me a little bit about Dad. When did you guys meet?
Well, it was in high school.
In high school?
Yeah. And he'd come from the country, and you know how the town kids thought the country kids weren't quite up to what we were. Well, we were in a play together, and I walked home with another girl home that lived just a block north of us. Well, then we went out to a dance, out to a farmhouse, and he danced with all the girls, but he never danced with me. And so he was standing there, and I said, "How come you never asked me to dance, Ted?" He said, "Well, one time I asked you to dance, and you said your feet were too tired." And he said, "I just thought maybe they were still tired." Well, then we started going together, and we went together all through high school, and we went to summer school in Atlantic, and he got to going with a lot of girls, but we finally got back together again, and we were married in 1925.
How did he propose to you?
Well, he didn't get on his knees.
He didn't. How did he do it?
Well, my folks were going to California with my mother's sister was visiting there, and they wanted my mother to go out to California with them, and if she went, why, I was going to have to go too. And he decided he didn't want me to go, and so that was the way it happened.
Did he give you a ring at the time, or?
No.
He just proposed to you?
Yeah.
When did he give you a ring then?
Well, he never gave me any diamond ring.
Is that right?
I just had my wedding ring. And then for a long, long time, well, for a long, long, long time, why, I said I'd like to have a diamond when I thought he could afford to buy one. And so he came home with this diamond, and it was the littlest, stinkingest diamond you could ever imagine. And I said if that was the best he could do, he could just take it back. I didn't know. So then he got me a bigger one.
Okay.
Well, that was a long time after we were married.
Yeah.
And I thought after I'd waited that long for a diamond, it could be a little bigger.
Yeah.
Tell about the movies. Huh?
The movies. The time you went to Omaha.
Oh, that was one of the funniest things that ever was. My sister Vera came over from Indianola, and was selling some cattle, and as usual we I generally went with him to the stockyards, and then I'd take a bus and go up to Omaha, and then he would meet me at the Reading Tower, and we'd come home. Well, Vera and I were going to do some shopping, and so we did our shopping and got through quicker than what we thought we would. So we decided to go to the Orpheum Theater just a little earlier than usual. And it was awfully dark in that theater. You couldn't hardly see a thing. The usher had to show us where to sit. And we just got sat down and nicely settled, and somebody sitting next to me started getting real close to me, and I said, Vera, I said, move over a seat. This guy's kind of familiar. And so she moved over. Well, he moved with, and we went maybe the whole row of that theater. And finally, we got to the end of the row, and I looked up, and I said, "Where's Ted?" And he had he recognized my voice when we came in, and he was sitting not far from there. So he just followed us in and sat down beside us.
Oh, gee.
And we thought, it's a wonder they didn't take us out of there.
Well, should we leave here and should we go up to the cemetery at Lincoln Township?
Okay.
Have you got some more things you want to talk about?
Well, I don't have too much to say about things up there, but I'll say a few things.
Okay. All right. We'll just move on from here. The Lincoln Township, Potawatomi County, Iowa. We're about 5 miles just straight south of Walnut, Iowa. This is where Frederick and Mary Johnk are buried. This would be my dad's, Theodore Jonk's. Mom and dad would be my grandparents. They were born in November. Frederick was born November 16th, 1848, and he died July 25th of 1908. His wife, Mary, was married to a Snyder and had 3 children. And then my father, Theodore and Gladys, Theodore Johnk were born from Mary and Frederick. Mary died May 2nd, 1874. She was born, and she died March of 1939. Frederick's John's father is buried here, and also his mother. This would be my dad's grandparents, which would be my great-grandparents. Now my mom is sitting over here. I'm going to record stories. How many brothers did Fred have, Mom?
Ted's father, there were 3 brothers. They came to Germany, and they settled. They came to Walnut, and they hired a through the country to see where they would like to buy some land. Well, the 2 brothers, August and Fred, stayed here, and the other brother, went out to Seward, Nebraska, and that's where he lived.
Do you know any idea about how old they were at the time that they came to Walnut?
No, I don't. I really don't know. I don't know. Fred, Ted's father, after he had lived here, after he had been here for a while, he sent and for his mother and father, grandmother and grandfather, to live here. He sent to Germany for them. And
Now, did he go back to Germany himself?
no,
He never went back to Germany.
no, not to my knowledge.
Okay.
There was a girl too, but I somehow don't know I don't know just exactly how that was. The story went that she rode off on her pony one day and never came back, and that I think some of her people are around Manning, Iowa at this time, but I don't know
Now this was Fred's sister?
Yes.
I see. Huh. Now there's a Henry that's buried right here with them. Do you have any idea who that would be?
I don't have an idea who that is. There's a baby's grave and another grave there that I haven't the faintest idea. The only one that I would know that would possibly know would be Maxine Coates.
Uh-huh.
And she perhaps would know more about this girl too, because I think Fred Johnk, the nephew of Ted's father's, kind of kept track of those people up around Manning and also out in Seward, Nebraska.
Uh-huh.
But Ted's mother never ever had any contact with any of the people very much.
I see. I thought that Fred went back to Germany.
No,
And what was in the will there about a woman in Germany and a son?
that was an illegitimate son
Oh,
of Fred's.
of Fred's.
He had the illegitimate son that before he left Germany.
Uh-huh.
He came here. And that was
I see.
that.
I see.
That's in the will.
Now they came from around Schleswig, Germany. Is that where they come from?
That's the part of the country they came from.
Then did Mary have any children besides Lena and Dad?
Oh yes, she had been married before and divorced, and she had Albert, Lena, Stina, and Dora. She had 4 children.
Now, what was her name before? It was Snyder or?
Her name was Peterson.
Peterson.
Before she married Snyder.
Uh-huh. And she was from Avoca, or?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
What could you tell me about, did you know Dad's grandparents?
Oh no.
You didn't know them, huh?
No, I think they...
Well, matter of fact, Dad wasn't his own father, would he? Really? He was 3 years old when my... No?
I don't know. I don't know. He was...
Uh-huh.
The grandfather was supposed to have committed suicide by hanging himself in a cottonwood tree that used to be across from Krieger's, where Alvin Krieger lives, in the field there.
Uh-huh.
And but the particulars I don't know about. They lived in a little house on the farm where Ted used to live.
Uh-huh.
We lived where we lived. Whether there was another little house there or not, I don't know. But I think that's where they lived.
Now, Dad was born in 1905, is that right? And his dad died in 1908, so my dad was only 3 years old at the time.
He was just 2.
2. Okay. 2 years old.
No, he never knew his mother.
Uh-huh.
I don't think he had any remembrance of it, really.
Uh-huh.
I don't
Yeah.
know if he did. I've forgotten. He was just too young. I don't think Lena even did.
Uh-huh.
His sister was a year older than he.
Uh-huh.
She was 3. They passed away. And they lived on the farm, and then Albert Snyder farmed the farm for his mother, Mary Johnk, and then Mary finally moved to Walnut,
Uh-huh.
and Ted moved there with her, and he went to school there.
Uh-huh. Then did you, when you guys got married, you moved out the farm right away then?
Well, the following March, yes.
Uh-huh.
We were
What
married
year was it that you got married?
1925.
1925. Okay. And then that's when she moved to town?
Oh, no.
No?
She had moved to, they had lived in town several years before that. Ted went to school there from the 8th grade on.
Then who lived farm now?
Snyder.
The Smiths. Okay. All right.
He married, Albert Snyder married, and they lived there a while.
Who did he marry?
Viola Grass.
Grass. Now, was she any of the Grasses from Hancock?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
I just don't know exactly whether she was a cousin or a sister to some of them. I don't know. Grass.
Uh-huh. Well, we leave here and go to Walnut?
Okay.
All right. Hey, Mom. This is your father here?
Yeah, my father.
And he,
Thank
thank you.
Mother. And
How do you pronounce her first name?
Dana.
Mendana?
Her name was Mendana Alice.
Mendana
Hogan.
Alice Hogan?
Yeah, that's pretty Irish.
Yeah, yeah.
And these 3 graves were her children that were all born before I was.
Uh-huh.
The little girl was between Vera and I. And they were all born and died in Valley Junction, Iowa. My father was a railroad man, and that's where they lived.
Now, who are these people here?
There are 3 children.
They're the 3 children.
Yeah. Her sister and 2 brothers.
And there'd be your sister and 2 brothers.
Sister and 2 brothers, but they were
Okay.
all born, you see, way before. The 2 boys were older than Vera.
Uh-huh.
And then the little girl was between Vera and I.
Uh-huh.
And Vera was 15 years older than me.
Uh-huh.
And this little girl was just 6 months old when she died.
Now, what did they die of? The flu epidemic or what?
Well, what they used to call membranous croup.
Uh-huh.
And I heard my mother tell the one little boy, they tried to save his life and they put a silver tube in his throat, but he just breathed once and,
Uh-huh.
and that was it.
Uh-huh.
And
Now, who was W.S. Sankey?
that was my Uncle Scott. He was a brother to my father.
Uh-huh.
And my Aunt Lizzie, his wife, was a sister to my mother. Brothers married sisters.
Oh, is that right?
Mhm.
Brothers married sisters.
And when I was a little girl, their home was my second home, away from home.
Uh-huh.
They used to take a lot of care for me. And it was always to Uncle Scott's house, so we went for Christmas. We had...
Now, did he live here in Walnut, Uncle
Yes,
Scott?
They lived
Okay.
in Walnut.
Okay.
And we lived across the street from them at that time. And we always had Christmas at Uncle Scott's after the church. Christmas tree at the church.
Uh-huh.
But a week or so before Christmas, the front room in Aunt Lizzie's house was always closed off.
Uh-huh.
And she was getting ready for the Christmas. We'd always had a great big Christmas tree, and they made my Christmas a lot.
Now, was there who was the lady that lived in Sioux City, Mom?
Well, that was a sister of my father's and Uncle Scott's.
She was a sister.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
She,
Now, is she buried here?
yes, across there's a Sankey where my father's mother and father are buried there, and I think 2 sisters, Maddie and Kitty.
Uh-huh.
But I knew Maddie because I was just a small girl when they brought her home.
Uh-huh.
And she was at Uncle Scott's house and died there.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Did Scott and Lizzie have children?
Yes, she had 3 children. A little girl by the name of Ethel.
Scott and Lizzie.
Yes.
Okay,
And
had
they
children.
Had 3 children. Their little girl was named Ethel, and she died real young. Then there was Harold. He died in Kansas City. He had a job one time with the Rock Island Railroad. He was a goer in his day. He was a good guy. He always brought me a nice Christmas present.
Uh-huh.
When I was just a little girl, I remember him real well. And then Bert Sankey, he was the station or the station master in Atlantic for years. He was agent in Atlantic at the depot. Then he was transferred to Des Moines, and he has one daughter still living in Des Moines, Ruth Miller. She's a little younger than me.
Uh-huh.
And she's living in Des Moines. I see her once in a great while.
Now, you talk about Scott. Now this is W.S. Scott, but he always went by Scott, huh?
Yes.
I see. Scott
And he
Sankey.
was one of the best auctioneers in the country of that time.
Is that right?
Yes. Was her name at that time. She married Harry Walters, but she and I were very good friends. We were little girls. She lived with her grandmother right next door to my folks, playmates. And her father was killed. He was bringing older hogs to Walnut, and the flyer that used to go through Walnut, the fast train, somehow or other, he was hit by it and was killed instantly. And of course, I was very sympathetic with Linda. And one day we came out to the cemetery, and wild roses were blooming, and the hill was just full alive with the wild roses. And she and I decorated every grave in this cemetery with wild roses.
My God. Weren't they stickery? Don't they have little
If
stick?
they were, we didn't notice it.
You didn't notice?
Time. No.
Oh, gosh. How long ago's that been?
Well,
How old were you at the time?
oh, I would imagine 10.
10 years old?
10, 12,
Yeah.
somewhere along in there. I just don't quite remember exactly.
Yeah.
But and I went to school in Walnut and graduated from Walnut. And my sister Vera did too. And she was very talented. And she was the first and only one that ever won the state declamatory contest in Walnut. And when she did that, the band met her at the depot, and there was quite a celebration. It was quite an honor at that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I played the piano after a fashion. I played at the movie theater. Elsie Sievers and I. Elsie played the violin, and I played the piano for several years during high school. I saved my money and bought a floor lamp for my mother one time for Christmas.
Is that right?
The money that I made at playing the piano.
How much did that lamp cost you? You remember?
I've forgotten now, but it was quite a little bit. It took me quite a little while to get it paid for.
Yeah. Infant of Gladys and Theodore Johnk, baby which died as an infant in 1928 before Dawn or Carol or myself. We're still in the Walnut Cemetery. We're probably, this stone is by the Kriegers, straight north of the tree. And I would say probably about 120 yards from the Y down there of the Omaha or Walnut Cemetery. Okay, Mom, do you want to tell me about that infant baby?
Well, yes. It was, we had a terrible time getting to the hospital. It was one of the worst storms. And we finally got there, but when we got there, we had to go through cattle fields and everything else. And we just got to this one place, and the man was closing the gate.
Now, what hospital was you going to? Council Bluffs or Atlantic?
Mercy.
Mercy and Council Bluffs.
And he was locking the gate and wasn't letting any more cars through. He said he had been chasing cattle all day long, and he was not through until 10. So I have to get my wife to the hospital. She's expecting a baby. So he took us, and he broke away for us clear, and we ended up down at the Iowa School for the Deaf. And we started out on Old 6. And we were just one of 5 cars that got into Council Bluffs that day. And the streetcars weren't running. Everything was, it was just snowed under. And the baby was born on Easter Sunday. It was Easter Sunday.
Uh-huh.
What year?
And Well,
1928.
it was John was born.
Uh-huh.
And I remember the sister coming in and telling me that they couldn't save the baby.
Uh-huh.
And it was a bad day.
Okay.
Did the baby? Did you name it when you?
Yes,
What did you name the baby?
Phil.
Huh?
Phil.
Phil was the name of the baby. Okay.
That's on the papers.
Uh-huh. Where are those papers, Mom?
I don't know. I suppose they're at the cemetery where they keep things from the
Okay.
cemetery. See.
Okay.
And I was so dumb when I got there. We started from Oakland at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we didn't get to Council Bus until 5:30 that night.
Gee whiz. And it was due to snow?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was so drifted.
Yeah.
Bad.
What kind of a car was you driving, or was it
I don't remember. I think it was an old Dodge, if I remember.
an old Dodge?
I don't remember
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
But Edgar Zimmerman, one of our friends, went with us
Uh-huh.
to help us
Uh-huh.
along. It was an awful bad storm.
Yeah. Well, shall we get in the car and we'll drive around Walnut a little bit, and maybe we can take some pictures and you can tell me some more stories?
Okay.
All right? Okay.
Because I always used to come down to this house up here. Nichols lived there, and they were my friends, girlfriends.
Right on this corner?
No, the next house.
Oh, in the next house.
And my dad always knew where to find me. That's where I know. One time, he sent me down to get some meat for dinner, and I fed it to a dog. And and then I stopped at Nichols' house and stayed, and I hid when he came after me. I hid under the bed, and then Mrs. Nichols told him where I was, and he switched me all the way home. And here's where my teacher lived. That when I was in the 4th grade, and I admired her so. She had a gray squirrel coat, and she always wore a bunch of artificial violets on there, and she was such a pretty woman. And I always said, whenever I got big, I was going to have a gray squirrel coat, but I never did.
You never did.
And this house here, and this house over here, I used to carry buttermilk, and both the ladies would give me a nickel for the buttermilk. Here's where our old house was. And Beckenorffs tore it down and built this new little bungalow house. And my folks sold it and moved, and they built a new little bungalow across the alley. So we lived there, and then we lived here.
In this blue house?
And and that's my folks, and I bet that's the little playhouse that I used to have. And I was staying with Vera in Neola, and my folks sold this house, and it just made Vera sick because she said Dad just wanted to move over into that old house so he could be near the railroad. And it was such a dilapidated old house, and Mother worked so hard to clean it, get it livable. And they left all my playthings in that playhouse. And I had some dolls, and I had I had a lot of toys, a little stove with kettles and stuff. And I never got that stuff back. The people that bought the house never seemed to know what happened to it, so I never ever got it back. To me.
That street. Where else should I go?
Vera's husband's folks lived, Mr. and Mrs. Taggart, and I stayed there with them. They kept me while Mama went over to take care of Vera when Marceline was born. And that was the hardest week of my life because I was used to playing and doing as I pleased. Well, with Mrs. Taggart, when the curfew rang, I had to be home. And she was very strict, which was probably all right, but it was bad. And this is the old schoolhouse that I went to school at, all through the grades. But they built onto to it. The gymnasium and this other building on the north were all new to what it was when I went to school. It was just grass, and they used to hold what they called Ring Ride Day, the German ride. That was a German social thing at that time. And all the German girls got to play this game of breaking the crock. And that was what I wanted to do, but I couldn't do it because I wasn't German.
Which way?
We used to make the best taffy candy you ever tasted. It was pink and chocolate and white. Sold it. It was sure good candy.
Do you want to stop and get Lou McDermott and go for dinner?
No.
No?
No.
Oh, look at the vines on it. Look at
Now go slow, Phyllis, because I think this is the house that was on the corner.
Right here on the corner.
Where Grandpa and Grandma lived.
Okay.
And now there used to be a house that was right down here in the corner in the field, Mom. Who lived there?
Bill Dose's.
Bill Dose. Yeah.
That's torn down.
Oh, yeah. It's right back on Main Street, ain't it?
Yeah. This is where my Uncle Scott's lived, this White House here. Oh, it's such a beautiful home when they blew it. And there's where Ted's mother lived. And a terrible place. Now they got it fixed. Either one of them would turn over their grave if you could see it. So, isn't it though?
It's for sale. Shall we buy it and clean it up?
Heavens no. That's the oldest house, one of those